Well, hello YouTube, it's me Fortmaster, and welcome back to another game theory reaction. So this one is Death is Inevitable in AFK Journey. Like, isn't there like a mobile game or something called AFK Journey or something like that? I remember a while ago Markiplier did an ad for it where he was added as like a shopkeeper in like the game or something like that. I honestly can't remember. Though just, looking at the little browse game window underneath the video here, that's not what I remember the mobile game being. So this is probably something, new that I haven't heard of. Though, I mean, it did say it came out last year, so, again, could be just me being oblivious. Okay, so I did just look up, and yeah, AFK Journey is like a mobile game or something like that. Haven't looked up anything more, because, don't want to spoil or anything. But Death is Inevitable, that is a very dark title. And, given that, these AFK games are usually ones where, oh, you earn stuff while you don't play, woo. I have no idea what this is going to be about, and, usually with game theory, that's a good thing. Because it usually means it's going to be one of the weirder episodes. So, yeah, we should probably get into this. Also, sorry if I sound a little, strained in my voice. I literally just finished doing the 4-hour stream, finishing up TS Underswap. And of course, Undertale games are ones where you have to do a lot of reading and talking of dialogue. So yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video link to my film theory reaction. And if you like this video or any other ones I put out, I would very much appreciate it if you gave it a like and also subscribe to my channel. All those little things help in the YouTube algorithm, and I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers this year at some point. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Would you rather be stuck in a forest with a man or a bear? What if those weren't your only choices? What about a leopard, a zombie, or a literal living tree? And the one you choose will help determine your survival in not just any forest, but a horrifying frozen wasteland. I've crunched the numbers, and I have the answer right here.
Okay, that just came out of left field. But yeah, so that was based off the whole, the whole thing of like, would you rather be trapped in a forest with a man or a bear? But also, frozen wasteland? I mean, I'd really have to think. I mean, obviously not a bear or a leopard. Probably a man, unless I was aware of what Talking Tree's temperament was before. Because if it's a nice tree, maybe it could help me out survive, like since it's a talking magical tree, presumably, it would know the surroundings and know where I could find, food, shelter, supplies, that sort of thing. But otherwise, I'd probably go with the man, because hopefully that means, there's two of us now. And granted, that means, there's more food we have to get, but it also means that, hey, we can do more things at once. So, you never know.
Hello Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that loves two things: overthinking survival tactics and waifus. And today, we have both of those in spades, thanks to the sponsor of today's episode, AFK Journey. They just released their new season update, Chains of Eternity, where you'll be exploring the icy lands of Cedar Town and White Ridge during the annual winter festivals. A relaxing time full of fun and games, which sounds delightful, until you get drawn into a mystery involving horrifying creatures, a millennia-old curse, and we're also stuck in a time loop we need to find a way to escape. If you want to survive, the town encourages you to follow their forbidden rules. The first of which is, do not go outside at night. And when you look at things, that makes a lot of sense. Between the freezing cold temperatures, the inhospitable and isolated landscape, and the freaking haunted snowmen, let's just say that if this were real life, I would definitely be following that rule.
So, is this just, there's a special breed of haunted snowmen, or is it more a case of any snowman that's built becomes haunted during the night? Because if it's the second case, why would you build snowmen in the first place and not have it outlawed?
But of course, as the heroes of this game, we gotta break the rules to save the day. So the question is, who is best suited to that challenge? We're not playing as an average gamer, after all. We get to take control of dozens of epic heroes, all separated into 4 main factions. We've got the human but adaptable Lightbearers, the animalistic Maulers, the nature-loving Wilders, and the undead Graveborn, all with various strengths and weaknesses. If we send them out into the frozen wilderness with nothing but the clothes on their backs, based purely on science, could could any of them make it through the horrid winter? There's only one way to find out. Stand back, everyone, because I'm about to release my ultimate move, massively overthinking fictional game worlds with science for the amusement of myself and others. Hi.
Okay, I think I understand what this video is going to be about. And what was it they did? It was like a sponsored video they did a while ago where like they were like trying to figure out which monsters in a monster fighting mobile game were the most usable or something like that. I forget.
Yeah. Let's kick things off by laying out exactly how we're going to do this survivalist challenge. There are 3 big challenges that these 4 factions need to be able to overcome. Firstly, they need to be able to survive the temperature. The Duchy of White Ridge is cold, like insanely cold. When I spoke to the dev team, they told me that White Ridge is based on places like Norway, and there, during the winter, you're dealing with average temperatures of -1 to -7 degrees Celsius, or 29 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. But
that's not that bad. It was -12 today.
records have also gone as low as -50 degrees Celsius or -58 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
so anyone
I believe
that is naturally built to survive such a harsh environment is gonna have an advantage here. Next, you'll have to build shelter. If you've ever watched any of those survival reality shows before, you know that building a shelter is critical to getting a good night's rest. It helps to keep out the elements as well as other horrors that linger outside. And finally,
Yeah.
our teams will need to find a reliable source of food. Food is what gives us energy to keep our bodies warm, boost our immune systems, and grow and repair ourselves if we get injured, which, given the sentient snowmen I mentioned, could be very important to keeping themselves alive. For each
It's funny. Granted, I know very little about this setting, but the fact that you have a faction of people who are literally the undead and they're not the evil ones, it's a race of evil snowmen? That's weird. Okay, but just thinking about it, so obviously it being the winter, you could probably, cut down some trees, make a log cabin, but that's a lot of work, so you'd have to probably work on something like maybe an igloo first, which, given that it's snow, they're actually pretty warm. Food-wise? You'd have to work on the, animals. There's not a lot of course, it being the winter, you're not going to have a lot of plants, so you'd have to, have a very heavily meat-based diet during the winter, so that's a lot of deer, possibly, seals with, blubber and furs and stuff like that.
Each of these challenges, we'll award a score of 3 to 0 depending on how well they do. And at the end, we'll add all our points together, and whoever has the most will be the kings and queens of the cold.
Something tells me that, the best out of these will be the Graveborn, since, they're literally dead already. So I don't think the cold will really affect them at all.
Also not including the Celestial or Hypogene factions, they're basically divine beings of good and evil. Cryonia is literally an ice deity, which felt a tad OP for this challenge. So without further ado, let's get started, because we have one heck of a journey ahead of us. An AFK journey, if you will. Sorry, I had to. It's literally in my contract. Normally, the easiest solution to surviving the cold is fire. Make a fire, stay warm, easy. However, most of these factions contain humans, or human-like heroes, and humans have been harnessing fire for millions of years with just the simplest tools, which would make this section feel pretty pointless. Plus, the harsh conditions make keeping a fire going outside near impossible, so even if they could start one, it might not help them out in the long run. That's why we're also not including magic in these challenges, because most of the factions have someone who can just produce fire from nothing, like Miriel from the Lightbearers or Satrana from the Maulers. And given that one of the forbidden rules in this chapter is about how fire should always be red, with magical fires tending to be green or blue, I don't think the locals would take too kindly to us using that magic to make fire to begin with. So if these guys have to raw dog the elements based on their biology, who's surviving the longest? Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Tom, didn't you say there were zombies in this game? The Great
quite literally,
They just win. They're undead after all. It's
That's what I said.
They can die twice. Yeah, you'd think so. Canonically, these guys don't feel pain, but that doesn't mean their bodies won't have issues at these temperatures. Their bodies are still made up of the same stuff as you and me, i.e. water, and unlike living creatures who have a means of maintaining their internal body temperature, zombies don't have a working circulatory system, meaning the water in their bodies is stagnant and getting colder by the minute. After a couple of hours, those liquids will crystallize and cause rapid and substantial tissue degradation, causing them to freeze right in their tracks.
God, that reminds me of, one of the very, very first, Walking Dead videos that Matt Pett made on like Film Theory when he was still the host. Like it was like they were calculating like how long like the zombies would actually last if they were literally just reanimated corpses. And I remember the joke he made in the video was that, to keep the show running longer, they'd have to keep moving further and further north so that, the colder temperatures would slow down the decay of the zombies. And each season would have to take over, have to take a shorter and shorter time in universe. And he said tune in for like season 8 where the entire a 24 episode season is going to take over the course of like an hour in universe while they're in like Alaska. Oh god, that brings back memories.
Some of them are wearing clothing and armor, which may slow down the process slightly, but then
again,
you have
no body
like
heat.
Valka who are wearing armor while exposing their hearts, allowing all of that cold to get all up inside them, freezing them even faster.
Yeah, okay, I believe that.
They ain't gonna do anyone much good when a gust of wind shatters them to bits. Humans, on the other hand, do have working circulatory systems and can maintain some level of core temperature, though not for very long. We don't have natural fur, and some of our heroes didn't get the clothing memo that we were going to be in the sub-freezing wilderness. Looking at you.
Oh god, you gotta love that anime fashion where, where women have not discovered pants and they're only wearing like short skirts or like booty shorts with like thigh highs. Oh god.
You, Lady Valor. Our bodies are designed to operate with a core temperature of 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit. But with temperatures like this, hypothermia will become a serious problem real quick. If your body's core temperature drops to just 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, your blood pressure will begin to rise, you'll be shivering like crazy, and your liver can even begin to stop working properly. That's just 2 degrees Celsius of difference.
Okay.
After dropping to 32 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, your reflexes will slow down, your speech becomes slurred, and your brain becomes confused, sometimes even suffering from amnesia. At 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit, your body begins to shut down, and by 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, death is inevitable. At these temperatures, with no food or shelter, or with outfits like these, it's only going to take 2 to 4 hours to go from fine to graveborn. And if it gets as cold as the -50 I said earlier, death will arrive
that's gonna
in just
be
30 minutes. So that's all the humans off the table. And
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, learning about, winter camping through scouts and stuff like that, you always know, you dress in layers and you wear wool socks. Why? Because, God, I forget the specific reasons, but it has something to do with, the wool socks, they don't hold on to water as well. If they get damp from either your sweat or snow, they don't hold on to the water as well as like cotton socks do, so it's a lot easier to dry them. But also, if you're in a cold environment and you're wearing layers, that's because you wear layers so that you can take layers off so you don't get overheated, because if you get overheated, you start to sweat, and sweat is water, which then freezes.
And that puts factions like the Lightbearers down a significant number of heroes. But humans aren't the only species this game has to offer. Many of the factions have animals in their ranks. And yes, I know they're mostly humanoid animals rather than actual animals, but as we're not really taking magic into consideration, it makes more sense to treat them as animals rather than the weird science of human-animal hybrids. Nobody wants to think about that. Sadly, the Lightbearers don't do so well in this category either. The only species they've got besides humans are hamsters, and they'd be lucky to survive an hour at those temperatures. In comparison, the animals from the Maulers are used to roughing it up in the desert regions of AFK Journey, which, if it's like the Sahara, can get as cold as -0.5 degrees Celsius at night. Not quite as cold as White Ridge, but at least they'll last a little longer than the humans for sure. The real ace up their sleeves, though, is Shakir. Shakir is a wolf, and they are built to survive months at temperatures as low as -50 degrees Celsius. This is thanks to a second layer of fur that builds up during the fall. This thick undercoat then traps the air to keep the wolf insulated, to the point where they barely lose any body heat. So while not all of their faction might survive the winter, some of them will definitely be amongst the last standing.
It's very much, similar to, huskies that actually that actively, want to go out in the cold. you don't have, it doesn't take that much effort to go online and find videos of huskies like absolutely buried, and when their owners come and call them inside, they just kind of look at them like, oh, what? No, I'm fine. And just like, lie back down.
The real winner, however, are the wilders. These elf-like creatures have a symbiotic relationship with the natural world, and while you do have some animals that could survive varying amounts of time, like birds, rabbits, and goats, the thing that they have that trumps everyone are trees. And I don't mean the trees around them that they love so dearly, I mean literal sentient tree people like the hero Ulmus. Trees have adapted over millennia to basically survive anything the environment throws at them, and during the winter, trees do something pretty incredible. Yes, they lose their leaves, which is to preserve water, but their cells also begin to remove excess water from themselves to again stop them freezing. That water then freezes between the cells, protecting them from overexpansion with the cold. And
I mean, you do have to be careful because sometimes they don't do it quite right. Actually, because I know it's like, you know, fir trees like pine and stuff like that, their sap particularly is like so thick and like with such a low water content that it doesn't freeze that easily. But then you still have some trees where, you know, get a sudden cold snap and the trunk cracks.
And actually providing a layer of insulation to stop them freezing. At this point, the tree will convert starch into sugar, which acts as a natural antifreeze, meaning, unlike the Graveborn, no damage is done to the cells, and the tree is kept alive all season. Below freezing temperatures ain't doing nothing to stop this guy. So, after round 1, the Wilders walk away.
I mean, I would imagine they're going to be definitely a lot slower during the winter.
Survive a few months and walk away with 2 points. The Lightbearers make it through at least half a working day with 1 point, and the Graveborn freeze after a few hours and get 0. You may have noticed that last round I kept saying without food or shelter. Well, that's because
food and shelter's kind of important.
Can massively improve your chances of survival. A shelter can protect you from the elements as well as whatever else is outside. There's a reason that do not go out at night is one of the forbidden rules after all. But building a temporary shelter out in the wilderness is not quite the same as building a house in a city or town where you have infinite time and resources.
Actually, that's one thing. I forget where, so, you know, a little thing about, you know, building, like, one of them is, like, oh, you dig it, if the snow is deep enough, you can dig underneath and kind of, like, make a little shelter that way. And one of the main things about doing that is you don't want a straight path going in. You want the path to make, like, a couple of corners to make, like, an L, and you do that because, you know, if the wind blows, it's not going to instantly just go straight in and blow all the warm air of the shelter out.
It's especially hard if your main resource is the thing you're sworn to protect. Yep, while the Wilders were on top last round, this time it's a different story. Ulmus, the tree dude, does not take kindly to people defacing the forest. According to one of his in-game affinity tales, Ulmus rarely loses his temper, except for the time when some thugs brought axes into the forest. So yeah, not really going to be breaking down any trees for huts now, are we?
Then again, I mean, if you literally are a living tree, I mean, do you really need shelter? Or can you just kind of like basically turn yourself into a tree temporarily to go to sleep? If you even need sleep.
We do have Leica and Lawson, who are rabbit heroes, and rabbits are known to dig their own burrows for shelter. But that's going to be a lot of work for 2 people to dig a burrow deep enough to fit all of these animals and a literal tree.
And that's also, you know, not including the fact, you know, the frost has frozen the ground.
If they do end up digging a big hole, they may also run into another faction, the Graveborn. While these guys aren't like most zombies, they have intelligence and can communicate, you need more than brain power to build a shelter. Let me tell you, none of these guys were built for manual labor in their past lives. But on top of that, zombies are decomposing all the time. Their muscles are literally falling apart, getting weaker and weaker by the day. So building anything is going to be a bit of a challenge. I guess that's why they're all magic users in the game. They could try and follow their namesake and dig some graves, but I have a feeling they would say it was beneath them. Oh, baby! These guys may be cold, but I am on fire today! The Lightbearers may actually have a better shot here. Humans have been building shelters for millennia. In fact, the first evidence of man-made shelter comes from 400,000 BC, using wood, animal skins, and even leaving a hole in the center so that smoke from the fire could escape. It's pretty incredible. And with all of those things being available in the wilderness, it wouldn't take long for the Lightbearers to be up and running. Not to...
I will, Tom, I will. That whole thing where, like, people say people in the past were like, oh, they actually did this. It's incredible. But, I mean, granted, I mean, there is the whole thing of like, oh, it takes time to figure things out. But, I mean, people in the past, I mean, they were still people. You go back far enough, they were still human. They were still, you know, had the same mental capacity and capabilities as us now. Like, granted, I know, you know, Tom meant nothing by it, but like, but talking like that always makes me feel like people are like calling people of the past stupid, and then you know, you go on from that, and it goes like, oh, they couldn't have built the pyramids, it was done by aliens, you know, that sort of garbage.
To mention that they have Hugin the blacksmith on their side, a crafting perfectionist with a plethora of tools at his disposal, meaning their tents would not only be practical, but it would actually be nice and sturdy too. But
they'd be made of iron. No, not really, but you know.
But what about the Maulers, our animal friends? Well, from a lore perspective, the Maulers are used to harsh climates. They're also a group made up of many animals that will dig their own dens if necessary. But if they work together, they have something the others don't: the ability to work smarter, not harder. Instead of building a shelter, they have the instincts to find a shelter. Animals like bears, hyenas, lions, and leopards have all adapted to take notice of small details in the landscape and use those clues to find natural pre-existing shelters like caves. Wolves and foxes are especially good at this, as members of their own species or even other species will typically leave scent markers in their dens so that others can either sniff it out and join them or claim it as their own.
You know, I don't usually notice the editing in these videos, but I mean, just that.
Even when visibility is low, like say in a snowstorm. They may not be doing much building, but they certainly will be safe. Like I said, work smarter, not harder. So after round 2, that's another 0 points for the Graveborn, with the Wilders just pulling ahead with an extra point. The Lightbearers come in with a solid 2 points, but this time, I think the Maulers take the full 3, leaving the scoreboard looking a little something like this going into the final round.
It doesn't look like the Gravebearers are going to win this.
Oh, looks like everyone has worked up quite an appetite building their shelters. But how will these teams fare in acquiring enough food to not only fill their bellies for the night, but for the long term?
Well, I mean, given that, again, I'm pretty sure the I'm pretty sure the Gravebearers are going to win this one purely because, you know, they're dead, so either they can eat other people or just, you know, don't need to eat. Again, I don't know the lore of this world.
This is where the Graveborn finally get a chance to shine. Their undead, not working bodily systems works to their advantage. In fiction, you often see zombies eating brains, or flesh, and the reason given for this over the years has varied wildly, from it providing serotonin to ease the pain of being a zombie, to simply being a way to show their loss of humanity. But rarely is it necessary to survival, and in the lore of AFK Journey, the Graveborn are the same, with no need for food. Now, if only they could figure out shelter, then maybe they'd do better overall. The Wilders also come out pretty good here. As I mentioned earlier, a large portion of the group are trees, or tree sprites, so they just get what they need from the ground beneath them. Most of the animals in their faction are also herbivores, and while it may be cold, places like Norway do have plenty of vegetation that has evolved to survive these harsh conditions. The human Lightbearers also benefit from this, as
foraging, definitely.
Humans can indeed survive on just vegetables, much to Santi's displeasure. However, in this instance, it's going to be really tough for them. While there are plenty of plants for animals, there are very few plants that are edible for humans in this part of the world at this time of year.
Yeah, something tells me that, you know, most people wouldn't want to eat, you know, bark or twigs or moss. Yeah, I don't even think the most dedicated a vegan has a palate dedicated enough for that.
One plant that is edible would be lingonberries. Lingonberries provide around 50 calories per 100 grams, and since the average male needs 2,500 calories per day, that's a whole lot of berries. 5,000 grams, or 11 pounds, in fact. For reference, the average lingonberry bush produces just over 500 grams, or 1 pound of berries per harvest, meaning for each team member, they would need to scavenge 8 to 11 lingonberry bushes per day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the reason why most of the time when I see lingonberries, it's only, you know, a small jar of like a spread or jelly.
That's up to 176 bushes per day total, which I think we can all agree just ain't happening. And
No.
definitely not quickly. So really, this category comes down to one thing: hunting for meat. The more meat a group needs, the harder it's going to be to sustain over long periods. It's not recommended that humans survive on only meat just from a nutritional standpoint, but there are some carnivore diets out there, and they suggest people eat between 1 to 2 pounds of meat per day. With 16 members, that's 32 pounds. Basically, a Thanksgiving Day turkey every single day. And with talented hunters like Marilee, Atalanta, and Walker, that's doable. It's just not as easy as the Wilders have it. The same, however, can't be said of the Maulers. Yes, every animal in the Maulers faction is a natural-born predator, but with lions and leopards and bears, oh my, the daily meat requirements are
a lot higher, yes.
Combined, all of these guys would need to consume around 112 pounds or 51 kilos of meat per day. That's over 3 times more than the light bearers. It's not impossible by any means, it's actually just too dear per day. So I think I have to call this one a draw between the light bearers and the maulers. One of them needs a lot less food but has less hunters, while the other one needs more food but has more hunters. But it's easy to say that the Wilders take the second place spot, as the only carnivores they have are Lenya and Khafra, cat and eagle owl respectively, who only require 300 grams of meat per day. So that's 1 point for the light bearers and the maulers, 2 points for the Wilders, and 3 for the Graveborn, which means our winner and the best survival team is the maulers. Congratulations, you've earned the prize of being my chaperone through this latest AFK journey update. You guys have shown that you have what it takes to not only survive the cold au naturel, but you also have the skills to find food, even if you do need a little more than most, and save your energy by finding shelter rather than building it, allowing you to follow that all-important forbidden rule of staying inside at night. However, do you remember the second forbidden rule I mentioned back in the first challenge? Fires should always burn red. On the surface, that feels obvious. When you light a fire, it is typically red or orange. That is, until something else interferes with your fire. When different chemicals are burnt in a fire, they can change the color we see coming out of it. Potassium chloride, for example, makes the fire burn purple.
And famously, copper makes it burn green,
while copper chloride makes it blue. It's actually very cool to see when it's in a controlled environment. But if you're out in the world and see a different colored fire, that is definitely going to be trouble. In AFK Journey, the fire we witness in White Ridge is green. Green flames come from burning copper sulfate, boric acid, or barium chloride, all of which are toxic to both humans and animals. If these flames are all over White Ridge, that would mean that these chemicals are all present in the environment, which isn't gonna go very well for our heroes. All of these chemicals would cause their kidneys and livers to stop working, their brains to fog up, and eventually their entire bodies to shut down.
I mean, alternatively, it could also just be, you know, magic. I mean, this is a world with magic.
Wilder trees aren't safe either, as copper sulfate and boric acid are herbicides, killing them and stopping them from growing back later. If they somehow didn't ingest or breathe in any of the chemicals from the environment, once the fire starts burning, they'd be in even more trouble. Barium chloride, when burnt, produces chlorine gas, while copper sulfate produces sulfur dioxide, which again are also toxic, and they'll all end up in the air for our heroes to breathe on up. And given the size of these fires, I don't think they're likely to escape unharmed. The only ones that would survive this is, ironically, today's losers, the Graveborn. The chemicals may be an irritant if they touch the body, but these guys don't feel pain, and they're already decomposing anyway. They don't eat, so there's no ingesting. They don't breathe either, so there's not going to be any inhaling of anything, natural or burnt. I suppose this makes sense, given in the new update, the Graveborn are the ones responsible for the giant green fires. Use something that doesn't affect you while killing everyone else. Or, you know, the other factions could just fight their heroic instincts and not try to save the day. If they follow the forbidden rules by not going outside after seeing a fire that's not red, after a few hours, the Graveborns that caused it will cause their own demise and freeze to death. Maybe the residents here have always known that, and the only thing we're proving by breaking these rules isn't that we're heroes, it's that we're stupid. But hey, thanks again to...
Again, all the weirdness. I mean, granted, I know this was, you know, a completely sponsored video, so it's a little different from, you know, their usual stuff. At the same time, I mean, it was a nice little refresher remembering all these, like, all the stuff and, you know, the scouting, winter camping and survival stuff. It really is fun. I haven't gone winter camping in a long time. That might be an idea for next year. I have to see. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen that for some reason. Corner video link to my film theory reaction. And yeah, we'll hold it out of the way. I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.